An appeals court has ruled that Alina Habba, once known as President Donald Trump's personal attorney, cannot legally continue serving as New Jersey's acting U.S. attorney, despite the Trump administration's repeated attempts to keep her in the powerful post. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. The decision was handed down by a 3-judge panel of the 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, based in Philadelphia. The judges upheld an earlier ruling from a lower court after hearing arguments on October 20th where Habba herself appeared in person. In their detailed 32-page opinion, the judges described the administration's efforts as the product of frustration with the legal and political hurdles that have prevented its preferred nominees from securing permanent positions. They emphasized that the people of New Jersey and the staff of the U.S. Attorney's Office deserve transparency and stability during such a critical period. The ruling lands at a tense moment for the Trump administration, which has been pushing vigorously to keep Habba in the role even though her temporary appointment expired and she was never confirmed by the Senate, as federal law typically requires for long-term service in such positions. During oral arguments, the judges openly questioned why the administration continued trying to extend her authority without following the proper confirmation process. After the hearing, Habba posted a statement on X claiming she was not merely defending her own job, but advocating for other prospective federal prosecutors who have also been denied Senate hearings. She argued that political gridlock was hurting the justice system by keeping qualified candidates sidelined. The White House declined to directly address questions about the decision, and instead referred inquiries to the Justice Department, which also did not immediately provide comment. Requests for statements from the New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office and Habba's personal staff went unanswered. Lawyers for the appellees celebrated the ruling, saying it clearly established that Habba had been serving unlawfully. They vowed to continue challenging what they described as unconstitutional or improper appointments within the Trump Justice Department. We will continue to challenge President Trump's unlawful appointments of supposed U.S. attorneys wherever necessary, attorneys Abbe Lowell, Jerry Croviton, and Norm Eisen said. Habba's case is not isolated. Several Trump administration prosecutorial appointments have come under scrutiny. Just 1 week earlier, a federal judge dismissed criminal charges brought against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James after finding that the prosecutor who filed those charges, Lindsay Halligan, had also been improperly installed as an interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. The Justice Department has already announced plans to appeal those dismissals. The appeals court panel in the Habba case consisted of 2 judges appointed by President George W. Bush, D. Brooks Smith, and D. Michael Fisher, and 1 judge appointed by President Barack Obama, Luis Felipe Restrepo, giving the panel a bipartisan appearance. Experts say the ruling could cause significant uncertainty within the New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office and may affect ongoing and future prosecutions. Jacob Elberg, a professor at Seton Hall Law School and former federal prosecutor, warned that the decision poses real implications. This office handles a vast range of criminal and civil matters that directly impact the safety and rights of New Jersey residents, he said. If the leadership is found to be improperly appointed, that creates a serious challenge to the office's ability to function smoothly. The full impact of the court's ruling is still unfolding, but it marks a major setback for the administration's attempts to maintain control over key federal prosecutorial roles without Senate approval, an issue that is now sparking broader legal battles across the country. The controversy surrounding Alina Habba did not erupt suddenly. It unfolded slowly and steadily, building into a storm that had been gathering on the horizon ever since the Trump administration began quietly maneuvering behind the scenes to place its preferred allies into some of the most influential legal positions in the country. In the heart of New Jersey's federal justice system were major criminal prosecutions, civil enforcement decisions, and high-stakes investigations were shaped. The question of who held the authority to make those decisions had become a matter of national interest, and at the center of it all stood Habba, once known primarily as President Donald Trump's personal lawyer, now thrust into the spotlight as the would-be top federal prosecutor for the state. Her appointment as acting U.S. attorney had never been straightforward. It began as a temporary measure, one of many interim placements across the country meant to ensure continuity in federal law enforcement agencies. But when her interim term quietly expired, the administration did not follow the well-established path of submitting her name for Senate confirmation. Instead, it tightened its grip on the office, issuing directives and internal memos in an effort to keep her in place despite the clear legal barriers. Every move was closely watched by career prosecutors inside the office, by political observers across the nation, and by judges who were beginning to sense that the boundary between political power and legal authority was being tested in ways that threatened the stability of the justice system itself. As the months passed, Rumors began circulating through the halls of the Justice Department and into the newsrooms of major cities that something unusual was unfolding in New Jersey. Prosecutors whispered about the lack of transparency regarding Habba's authority. Defense attorneys questioned whether decisions coming from her office carried the weight of law. And behind closed doors, several legal scholars and former officials began preparing for what they believed was inevitable: a major legal showdown over the legitimacy of her appointment. That showdown finally arrived in Philadelphia, inside the grand and solemn courthouse of the 3rd U.S.P. Circuit Court of Appeals. On October 20th, the air was thick with tension as a panel of 3 judges, 2 appointed by President George W. Bush and 1 by President Barack Obama, prepared to hear arguments that could alter the trajectory of federal prosecutions across New Jersey. Observers noted how unusual the moment felt. Here was Alina Habba, not as a private attorney defending her client, but as a figure whose own authority was under scrutiny. The courtroom was packed with journalists, attorneys, and government officials, all waiting to see whether the administration's bold attempt to keep her in power would stand or fall. When Habba stepped into the courtroom, she carried herself with the same assertive confidence that had defined her public appearances. Yet behind that composure was a quiet acknowledgement of what was at stake. The judges wasted little time in probing the government lawyers representing the administration, pressing them on why the Senate confirmation process had been bypassed and asking how an interim appointment, which was clearly designed to be temporary, could be extended indefinitely without proper authorization. Their questions were sharp, their skepticism unmistakable, and by the end of the session it was clear that the administration's legal justifications were hanging by a thread. Just days later, the court issued its long-awaited opinion. In a detailed 32-page decision, the judges agreed with the lower court's ruling. Alina Habba was not legally permitted to remain in the role of acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey. Their words were not harsh, but they carried a weight that reverberated through the entire federal justice system. The court acknowledged that the administration had been frustrated by political opposition and procedural obstacles, but they emphasized that the rule of law could not be bent to accommodate those frustrations. The people of New Jersey, they wrote, deserved clarity, stability, and leadership grounded in legal legitimacy, not political improvisation. While the ink on the decision was barely dry, reactions surged across the country. Habba released a statement insisting that her fight was not just for herself, but for others who had been denied their chance at Senate confirmation due to what she described as political posturing. Critics, however, saw the ruling as a confirmation of their fears that the administration had overreached, attempting to install prosecutors without the constitutional oversight required for positions of such influence. Inside the New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office, uncertainty swept through the ranks. Career prosecutors wondered what would happen to cases that had been approved or directed under Habba's authority. Defense attorneys began preparing motions that could challenge cases already in progress. And in Washington, officials scrambled to determine what the ruling meant for similar appointments across the country, especially after another federal judge had recently thrown out major criminal cases filed by a different Trump-appointed prosecutor in Virginia on similar legal grounds. The implications were enormous. The ruling did not just challenge Habba's authority, it raised questions about the entire mechanism through which the administration had appointed multiple federal prosecutors in rapid succession. It opened the door to legal battles that could stretch for months or even years. And it signaled that the judiciary was prepared to push back when political maneuvering threatened to undermine the integrity of federal law enforcement.